Hi everyone, Steger here, and in today's episode of Fairview we will be detailing around this elementary school that I've just placed down. And later in the episode I will add some more houses along the cliff, which is not far from here. If you're new to the channel and want to see more City Skylines videos, then make sure to subscribe. This school here is positioned in a block that I deliberately left empty 2 episodes ago when I built the first few blocks of houses. Now I'm creating a fenced off sports area using tennis court and basketball court decals. In a quick search on the Steam Workshop, I couldn't find any small gates that fitted with what I wanted to do here, so instead I've moved the fences around and left gaps in between them. I've done this using Move It and also adding a few more fences temporarily to add more nodes for me to work with. For the tennis nets, I'm using some fence props and the prop line tool. I have enabled fence mode in the prop line tool so that the fences will start and finish where my cursor is. If you're unfamiliar with the mod, then it allows you to place down props with equal spacing. However, normally the lines will start and finish at the center of the props, and with the fence mode it allows you to start and finish at the edges of the props instead. Here I've used the surface painter to cover the ground with pavement and stop the grass from showing through the decals. On the edge of the painted area, square shapes are formed, so I've used the ploppable asphalt to cover this up. With this method, however, there's still grass showing through the ploppable pavement, but I think it's better than the grass showing through the tennis courts because they are more of a feature of this area. Another feature of this area is the playground that you would have seen me place down just before. This is similar to the playground that I placed down at the end of the last episode. This one is slightly simpler though, and doesn't feature any sandpits like the other one did. Here I'm building a path from the street corner into the main outdoor area of the school. This path kind of snakes around the playground, and with the end of the path I'm covering up this unpaved area with ploppable pavement. This area is due to the path being too close to what we painted with the surface painter. Now I'm creating some 6 square courts using the bike lane markings. This gives the children an area to play if they don't want to play on the playground and aren't in class. I'm copying and pasting some of these and placing them around the area. In hindsight, the back area probably should have been fenced off, as it's a bit unsafe and kids could easily run out on the road. Here I'm placing down some planters to break up the otherwise continuous area of concrete. You can probably notice that the ploppable pavement isn't all flush, and that's because there's a bit of a slope here. It doesn't matter too much to me though, because the area already looks a bit glitchy with the grass showing through the pavement. Oh, I did put a fence along the back here, I just hadn't got around to it yet. I have also added some maple trees in the front of the fence line and will leave that area as it is. Now I am providing a parking lot for teachers and parents at the school. At this school there's currently no space for school buses though. Later in the series I will probably add some bus lines in, and a few of these will pass the school. Thanks to the campus patch, I can use the vanilla school buses to run around the city, and I will also create a bus depot somewhere in the city for both school buses and public buses. While still on the topic of schools, I plan to place down a high school on the other side of the downtown. I am currently working on my own high school asset and have created the building so far, but still need to do all the texturing. This high school is actually my first custom asset that I've created for the game, and I really hope I can get it done. When I get the high school complete, I will share a behind the scenes video of it over on Patreon. On Patreon, I've also uploaded each save game, so if you're interested in that, then there's a link in the description to take you over there. Now I am adding the final touches to the school before I move on to building some houses on the cliff beside the river. Here I am placing down some picnic tables for children to socialise and eat their lunch at. It turns out I did add a sandpit to the playground, I just didn't do it initially with all the other props. The first of the houses that I build today will sit beside the park that I built in episode 2. Today I will try to vary the types of fences that I use a bit. and the cliff along the river is quite steep, and as the elevation changes further down the street, it becomes more difficult to work with and place fences around. So I do a little bit of terraforming, but this is mainly to get the fences to look nice. There is quite a bit of space between the road and the cliff face. My thoughts on why the road is so far in from the cliff is that the area was initially farmland for grazing animals, and there were paddocks right up against the cliffs. The road would have originally provided access to these paddocks, and as the city grew, these paddocks would have been subdivided into smaller residential sections. Here I've built a cul-de-sac that will have a few houses around it. With this cul-de-sac I have used the simple design of taking a 6-lane road and adjusting its length using Move It. I have then covered up the pedestrian crossings with ploppable asphalt, and to get any traffic around this cul-de-sac to move freely, I have disabled the pedestrian crossings and allowed the cars to block the intersection using Traffic Manager. The houses that I've just placed down are from the new University City Content Creator Pack. In this episode I wanted to use houses that weren't part of the American eclectic theme. While I still place down a few of these houses now, I think that mixing up the different building styles adds a bit more complexity to the area. As the original farmers here would have sold off their land to developers at different times, the houses would have different building styles, as building styles would have changed between new developments. My goal for this area was to reflect that by using a variety of buildings, and in a few minutes I'll place down some larger homes that overlook the sea from the top of the cliff. This next subdivision here is about 1 hectare and would have probably been a small paddock before it was subdivided. The street in the subdivision does not end in a cul-de-sac like the other one did, which might make it difficult for larger vehicles to turn around at the end of it. The houses in this subdivision will be from the American eclectic theme. After some quick research, the building style was popular in the early 1900s. And very early in the 1900s, there would have been very little consideration for cars and larger vehicles because cars weren't widely used until the 1910s and 20s. The decision of creating the road as a simple dead end could also have been down to the town planner who designed this area. They may not have added the larger turning circle to save space, and the lot sizes in this area are also a bit smaller than some of the other lots that I've built around the city, which also supports this theory, as they may have been trying to pack in as many houses as they could. Also, if this subdivision wasn't divided up into so many lots, the lots would be considerably larger than some of the other lots in the city. The other lots in the city are about 1,200 square meters, or a little larger than 1/4 of an acre. The lots in the last subdivision are only about 700 square meters, or at least the smaller ones are. I'm not too sure about the bigger ones, I haven't calculated that. If they went all the way to the cliffs though, I estimate that they would be over 1,800 square meters, which is considerably larger than the other lots in the city. My idea behind creating sections that were about 1/4 acre in the rest of the city does not come from America but comes from New Zealand instead. Here in New Zealand, a lot of houses are built on 1/4 acre sections. This is common in small cities and towns in New Zealand rather than in the big centres like Auckland where land is scarce. The lots in the grids from episode 3 were probably divided up when the city was first founded. At this time, density wouldn't have been considered, so larger lots were built instead. There are some smaller lots in episode 3 that I created. Some of these are only about 400 square meters and are for some modern townhouses. Here is a picture of the townhouses in case you missed episode 3. These townhouses are modelled off some in Auckland, New Zealand, in case you're wondering. This next subdivision would also have been a paddock at some point. Judging by the retro-futuristic style of the houses, the area was probably developed between the 1950s and 1980s. These houses are close to the elementary school and start to get a glimpse of the sea, so would be sought after real estate. The view out to sea is limited, as there will be houses in front of these ones, and the sea is cut off by the edge of the map, not far offshore. The colours of the houses create something very unique in this space, and the curves on the orange building are also quite out there. This orange building is definitely very retro, and even the colour scheme suits. These retro buildings are all vanilla assets, and are all level 4 or 5 villas if you search for them using Find It. The house I have just placed down in this back section is also one of the villas. The driveway to this house is the unlaned road from Network Extensions 2. I have also upgraded the fences around this house to make it stand out. This is the first house that gets a good view of the ocean. Here you can see what I was talking about earlier with the map ending and cutting off the sea. As my game is currently in the middle of the day, it is hard to tell what direction this water is. I wanted to have the sea on the east of the map, so I have adjusted the longitude using Ultimate Eye Candy to get the sun to rise over the water and set over the inland plains. In the inland plains, there is a rough grid for Georgetown, which is a small town that I will be building in some future episode. And the residents of Georgetown could even commute to Fairview to go to work or shop. One of the 3 highway connections on this map currently travels through the centre of Georgetown, and this highway currently connects right into the centre of Fairview on a 2-lane road that snakes around a hill in the countryside. The highway from Georgetown currently connects with a highway running in the north-south direction at a small intersection in the centre of Fairview. With these highway connections, Fairview would have been a great place for people from towns and cities that are north and south of Fairview to trade with people living in the inland plains out west. Trade would have been the main growth factor in the early days of Fairview that helped to grow the city, but as the city grew, the city growth was limited by the 4-level height restriction that I talked about in an earlier episode. In the future, I'll be removing this height restriction and changing the skyline a bit, but that's for some later episode, and in the next episode I'll be working on the western side of the current downtown area. I will stay in this area and also work on the southern end of town in some coming episodes. I am not focusing on the northern side of the city as it is constrained by the river here. It doesn't make sense for the city to expand to the other side of the bridge just yet. The bridge is about 600 meters long, and there is plenty of other flat land for the city to expand on. Near the bridge there is also a park. The park stretches along the top of the cliff beside the river and currently has no name. I would like for you to suggest a name for this park, so head down to the comments and leave your suggestions there. I am thinking that with Fairview being a city based around trade and commerce, the park should be named after a famous American businessman or merchant. While it might be tempting to suggest Donald Trump, please don't, because I will be excluding any suggestions to call the park Trump Park. If you have any other suggestions of what to name the park, they are very welcome down in the comments. Today's before and after shot doesn't really give a close-up view of what we've worked on today. As it expands along a long distance, it was kind of hard to capture it within one image. These other cinematic shots capture smaller areas of today's episode. If you've enjoyed today's video, then give it a like and share it with your friends. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.